Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Monday night Periscope broadcast. Thank you for joining. My name is Dynasty. I'm one half of Maison de Rouge. And today we have the beautiful Goddess Rue. I will be bringing her in right now. There we go.
Hi.
Hi, Goddess Rue.
Hello. Hi, Dia.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
It's really great to have you on. Thank you for gracing us with your presence. And today there's a few things that Goddess Rue would like to talk about that are very important to talk about in general, because I don't think they get talked about very much. So we will have a brief introduction and interview section, and then I'm going to let her take the floor, and she's going to decide whether she wants to answer questions or not regarding her topic. So always be patient and polite, please. So, Goddess Rue, I just want to start off with your pronouns, which I believe are she, her, and boss bitch.
That's correct.
I love that. I've never seen that as a pronoun before, but I think, more of that.
Try to throw a little edge on it,
Yes.
It matches my personality, so, had to put that in there.
As it should. And Goddess Rue is also the owner of an online adult toy store called Pleasurable Seductions. And
Seductions, sorry.
Seductions, sorry.
Yes.
Okay. Seductions. And that is available on, is that only Instagram?
So Instagram is for social media, and then we also have online www.pleasurableseductions.com.
Oh, okay. Very easy. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. What were some of your first kinky sexual or non-sexual experiences, whether you knew they were kinky or not?
So honestly, the first kinky experience that I had was hosting a swingers party. I got thrown in there. So I was thrown in the deep end. I didn't know what to expect. I just thought I was going to be giving, a regular sex party. I was just hosting. That's it. I didn't know how in depth it would be because I didn't really get that much, how could you say, information beforehand, but it was, it was good. I liked it. Yeah. I was right at home.
Was there, oh, you were right at home. I mean, was there anything that, I guess maybe you learned about yourself from that?
Well, honestly, I've always known that I was dominant. I'm dominant in all of my relationships and stuff of that nature. However, I was introduced to domming, professional dominatrix, actually going to that swingers party. So that's when I actually discovered, what a professional dominatrix was, because I really didn't know before. Usually you see, a woman dressed up in latex or leather, and you're like, oh, wow, she's like a boss bitch. Okay. But I really didn't know the extent of, what was going on, or even anything about a kink community, BDSM. I wasn't aware of that. So like I said, I was thrown in the deep end, and that was my first experience.
Wow. That's great. Yeah. I'm sure you handled it swimmingly.
I did.
Yeah. As dominant women do. When you were young, when you were a kid, were you ever, called bossy and you were just kind of like, so what? Is that a bad thing? That kind of thing?
Honestly, when I was younger, everyone always looked to me. I was always the leader in the pack. Mm-hmm. Even in school, if we had any essays or whatever, and it was a group presentation, I would always be the one to present because I was always outspoken. I would always step up first in any situation. And then on top of that, I'm the protector of my friends. So I guess it all intertwines with, the dominant one, dominance, Yeah. So yeah, from birth, my mom always said, you've always known what you wanted, Yeah. She could always tell what I wanted by how I reacted. Sometimes I was a little bit too boisterous, but, in being dominant, that's just what you give,
Yeah. You've always just known this about yourself and weren't afraid to just be it.
Exactly.
Not been stomped down by society to not be that.
Exactly.
Awesome. So how did you, I mean, you talked a little bit about kind of just being dominant. How did you learn to monetize your, your position as a dominant woman?
So actually, in going to that swingers party, I was actually, approached by a submissive guy. I didn't really know what was going on at the moment, but he asked if he could speak. He asked me for permission to speak. I was kind of thrown off. I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? But permission granted.
Yeah.
And he said, what would you like to be addressed as? At that point in time, I didn't have a dominant name or a dominatrix name. I didn't have anything that I would go by. So I told him, my nickname. And he said, did you want to be mistress or goddess? I just loved how goddess sounded. So I went with goddess and I used that first name. And, I just winged it. And since then, he asked me, how would you like, he didn't ask me for payment. He said, how would you like me to tribute? And, me just speaking to him and trying to figure out a little bit more, pull a little bit more out of him without, giving myself up. I probably did, because he probably realized I didn't know what I was talking about. He actually went in depth and was like, I would like to tribute to you because I respect you and I'm thankful for your time. And I would like to, tribute. How do you accept payment? So that's when it checked off in my head like, oh, wait, okay, he wants to give me money. So I already had my business set up. So it was easy for me to just give him my PayPal link and, he just sent me money. And then he asked, do I have like a Amazon account set up where I could accept gifts and stuff like that. And I already did. So everything kind of like coincided with one another and it was perfect. So yeah.
You were set up of it, needed to fill in that space.
Yes.
How did you get into the sex toy biz?
So honestly, in growing up, I have always been comfortable with my sexuality. And one of those days where you're hanging out with your girls, I was in the Village. I'm from New York City. We're in the, Village, and they have tons of sex shops. I was very interested in, what was going on. So, I picked up my very first toy, a bullet. From there, my friends would ask me about it. I would explain to them. And it just so happened that as I'm explaining, someone else is listening in. And they're like, oh, wow, you seem to know a lot about this. Again, I really didn't know. It was just my first personal experience. And I also taught pole dancing lessons. So they asked, would I be open to teaching, about stuff like that? And I was like, oh, wow, well, I actually teach pole dance lesson. Maybe we could tie this in. I could give you like a pole dancing class. And then we can go into like the introduction of like, bullets and stuff, because that was like my first, go-to pleasure toy.
Yeah.
And it just started from there. I booked a group of women. This was my first time. I taught them a pole dancer lesson. Then we went on to, the introduction of bullets, because that was all I knew of. And from there, word of mouth spread, and a lot of women were interested in actual home parties. So I said, you know what? Let me make this legit. So I created my business name. I went on and got my LLC, and this is what I started doing. So that is like my little spew on how I got started with Pleasurable Seductions.
Nice. Did you say that a lot of women were interested in a specific kind of party?
It's called pleasure parties.
Pleasure parties. Okay.
So that's like a bachelorette, or it's pretty much me showing the introduction of different toys, giving a little education behind it, them getting up to feel, see how it is, how intense it is. And then pretty much if they choose to buy, they can. If not, that's fine too.
Okay. And it's a great time to just like be women and talk about sex.
Exactly. Exactly. Play games,
Yeah.
Yeah. Just good old girl time with just a little, addition of some toys.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you, this is kind of off the tangent, but what do you feel like is the most important thing that we learn about our own sexuality?
Well, I feel like the most important thing is knowing that it is okay to pleasure yourself. You don't need someone else to help you in that area. A lot of times people don't even get to explore themselves. They don't really know what turns them on, what turns them off. So they're kind of like, going with the flow with the partner. So I always say, first figuring out what you like by yourself, is definitely the most important thing.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I grew up in the South, in the Bible Belt, and there's a lot of people that like wouldn't touch themselves, and I always found that to be so strange. Like, how do you know what you like? Or are you just like, there for somebody else? But yeah,
Right.
that's so important, and thank you for saying that.
Absolutely.
So I think one of the areas in our life that's lacking is definitely kind of like sexuality and sex education. And as a sex worker, we're kind of in that umbrella of people that deal with sex. But under that umbrella, I feel like there's definitely a lack of representation with Black women and Black, gender non-conforming women, Black trans women, Black femmes, Black queer women, or Black queer femmes, like basically Black people. So,
yes.
So I would love to hear you talk more about this lack of, representation and how
Absolutely. Absolutely. So pretty much I'm from New York City. So a lot of things we're kind of like shielded from. So a lot of people in New York City have never experienced, racism or things of that nature. So it's kind of like we just go with the wind. When we hear of it, it's like, what? That could never happen because we're like bosses. And a lot of times you hear people from New York, they're very aggressive. No matter what your race is, Black, white, whatever, we're more aggressive. So when things of that nature kind of presents itself, we handle it a little differently. So I say that to say this. Being a Black woman growing up in New York City, I personally have not experienced, racism, to my face. However, getting into the kink community and becoming a professional dominatrix, I started to realize that the same opportunities that a Caucasian woman would have, I would have to go literally 100 times harder to be presented with those opportunities. Case in point, when I started my Twitter, I was always consistent. I always stuck to whatever topic I was dealing with for the week, whether it be foot fetish or I'm showing my ass, stuff like that, no matter what it was, or if I'm doing a kink like armpits, whatever it was. And I seen that, I wasn't really getting any interactions. So I started to do my research, as anyone should, getting into a new field, whatever that may be. And in doing my research, I found that there was just one person, she actually communicated with me. It was a dominatrix as well. She doesn't even consider herself as a pro dom. She said this is something that she just wanted to do. She's seen it, she heard it, and she thought it was cool. She got into it, and overnight she just blew up. So you find yourself as a human being and a woman comparing yourself to another person because you're like, okay, we got into this around the same time. Check. We're pretty much posting the same kind of content, but mine's is a little bit more polished. And I say that because I actually took professional pictures. I actually took the time out to do a little research on different kinks that I would be interested in, because that's also what you need to know about yourself. What are your hard limits? What are your soft limits? What do you want to engage in? Yeah. So those were some things that I decided to do. And with her, she was just all over the place and she just took off. I'm kind of like, all right. Move on to the next. I started using hashtags. This is before like the shadow ban started happening on Instagram. You could hashtag and you would see a lot of doms that's under your same hashtag. You can see what they're putting up. You can check their content out and see what's going on. And it was just like the same thing for so many doms. So, in doing my business, I was actually introduced to another dom sister, professional dominatrix by the name of Mistress Marley. We are actually really good friends now. I actually joined her network of Black Dom sorority. And in that, I realized, in joining that sorority, I realized that I wasn't the only one that felt that way or even noticed that. So now I have a group of sisters behind me that are all doing the same thing, and they're all having the same experience. So sometimes it's like, if everyone is saying the same thing, then clearly there's an issue. It's not just you.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely an issue. And, you know, I'm so glad that I have a group of sisters now that are, you know, dominatrix, professional doms, you know, financial doms. We have femdoms. We have just an umbrella of beautiful Black women, all different shapes and sizes, from all different backgrounds, all different walks of life, into the same, you know, thing. And it just makes you feel good to know that someone else shares the experience and can relate.
Yeah.
So
I'm assuming that the dom that you were talking about earlier was probably white.
No, I mentioned two.
Oh, okay.
So
Earlier, the first one, yeah.
Yeah, she was white. She was white, Caucasian. Yes.
Okay. So I'm curious how you guys support each other in, you know, in the Black Dom sorority when it feels like there's so much more in the kink world that's, you know, like a disparity between Black and non-Black.
Well, the thing that's so great about, you know, Black Dom sorority is that you always, no matter what time of day, what time of month, what time of the hour, you always have someone there to always back you and help push you and celebrate you, you know. And it's so unfortunate, but it's just like when people see another group of people celebrating someone, everyone rushes in to see like what's going on, what's the hype. So we kind of use that to, like, you know, build our audience and bring that attention in. And it's been great. You know, we retweet all the time, you know, because like I said, hashtags have been shadow banned. So you have to figure out another way for people to search what their kink is and kind of find you. So, you know, that's been another way that we kind of root for each other and push each other. And, you know, this is how we support each other, you know, because a lot of people do it, and we have to kind of figure out a way to, like, keep the attention, draw the attention and keep the attention, you know?
Yeah.
So
it's so great to have a community within a community. You know, I mean, I don't even know if it's so hard sometimes to feel like a part of the community when you're not being acknowledged by everybody in there.
Right.
So to have the Black Dom sorority and to have your Black sisters kind of like lifting you up, and then having other people seeing like, oh, what's the hype?
Right.
That's such a positive way to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It definitely is.
How do you feel about people that fetishize blackness?
Well, first and foremost, I kind of get that a lot. And I like to get, like, you know, the history behind that, because you got to kind of be careful where it's really coming from, you know. In all things kink, I don't kink shame, but, you know, I just like to have a little history behind, you know, where did it come from, so I know whether or not I should move forward and, you know, proceed with caution. Some people I've heard, like, you know, they were abused by a Black woman for whatever reason, or a nanny and stuff like that. So I kind of try to, you know, tiptoe around that and just proceed with caution. So I just like to know, like, where did it come from and why?
Yeah. There's definitely unhealthy cycles of like
Yes.
self abuse or re-traumatization when it comes
Right.
to people seeking out certain types of sessions.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's not that like there's any shame in that, but it's not really our place to like perpetuate that cycle when what they really need is like trauma therapy.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, totally. So do you have any, I guess, like favorite types of sessions or favorite types of clients?
So, well, first of all, we're talking about femdom sessions
Um,
in person or just.
yeah, I mean, yeah, femdom sessions or
Okay, so I
yeah.
love impact play. Like that's my thing. And I'm big on like sensory stimulation. I consider myself also to be like a sadistic, sensual dom.
Mm-hmm.
I just get a high off of that, So not only do I, engage in impact, play and stuff like that, I also make sure, my sub is good. I kind of slow it down, bring them in, and with that sensory play, sensory stimulation, or either sensory deprivation, I kind of like draw them in. I get them in this trance,
Yeah.
So I love that because they don't know if they're coming or they're going. And to know that I have control of that, it is amazing. It's amazing.
It really is. And sometimes do you ever get like that high, that like dom space, or where it feels like your head is like floating off of your body?
Yes. I know. I can relate. Yes. I love it. I just love it. It just makes you feel like you are doing everything right, like, because in starting out and stuff like that, I didn't always have that. I didn't always know that. You're learning, you see what's your do's, what's your don'ts, and stuff like that. So knowing that I've actually come to that point and I've mastered my skill and the sub is receiving that, it's like the ultimate high,
Yeah, it's like a unique chemistry that they've fully surrendered themselves to you, and you have all this power, and you're being responsible and taking them to a place that they definitely are enjoying themselves.
Yes.
That's so fun. I love that. To totally relate. What are some of your favorite impact instruments? Cool.
So I love wooden paddles. I just love it. It's just sturdy. It's heavy. It just screams like, whoa. I know that's gonna hurt. Like you're gonna feel my presence when I connect this to your body.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely a wooden paddle. I love that. The pinwheel, love that.
Yeah. Oh, those are two very different things.
Yeah.
Do you do some sort of impact with the pinwheel, or is that just for sensation?
That's for sensation.
Okay.
And then follow up with the wooden paddle. Can't really do too much impact with the pinwheel. They'll have blood all over. And I don't engage in those type of sessions. But yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have there been anything that you found kind of like as surprising lessons about your growth in this career?
So surprising lessons. Absolutely. I've learned to never judge a book by its cover. Honestly, I've gotten some strong strapping subs, and I'm thinking like, all right, I'm going to put my all into this. And, in doing so, I ended up hurting a sub because their intensity level was not high at all. So I've learned to not assume and to communicate with my sub to know, where I should start with them, especially if it's our first session. So that was definitely a lesson I learned. I was surprised because I assumed that this guy could take more and he could not.
It's always kind of I find that with kink, it always is a little bit of a surprise.
Right.
When somebody looks like maybe kind of meek and they end up being like a total pain slut.
Yeah.
And also the opposite, like you said, when somebody looks like they can handle quite a bit and then they end up just kind of, needing some tender.
Empowering, like at the first touch. Like, I'm like, what? I thought I was gonna have some fun, you know, but yeah, you get what you get. You don't get upset.
Yeah, totally. And it's nice to just be open to letting other people kind of like fall apart, you know, whatever it is that they fall apart on, whether it's pain or whatever.
Right.
Give them what they need to fall apart.
Yes.
What about, okay, so those are some of the surprising things that you've learned in session. What about like things that you've learned about yourself as a person? Like maybe about your dominance and or anything, you know, in that regard.
So, you know, in dealing with a lot of different people, personalities, and energies, I've realized that I'm definitely an empath. Like, I take on people's feelings and, you know, I'm very empathetic towards them and stuff like that. So this is where the, you know, the sensual kind of sadistic side comes in, because I kind of bring it in and make sure they're okay, you know, but you're going to get it too. You're definitely gonna get it.
Yeah.
So just in, you know, general, that's how I am with my friends, my family. So I've learned that about myself. So I kind of put up a barrier to make sure that I'm not, you know, taking on too much, because I don't want to drain myself.
Yeah, no, it's really important actually to have some sort of empathy, I think. And I'm curious if you have any I guess like protection rituals or just like rituals that you practice to protect yourself when going into a session.
Definitely, always, all the time.
Is
I
it
always make sure. I'm sorry?
is it like energetic, or is it like a set of actions or anything like that?
So no, it's just energetic and just words spoken. It's not, you know, necessarily a set of actions or anything of that nature.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really finding out that more and more people have their own little, you know, like prayers or you know, talismans or whatever it is, because so many of us are actually empathic,
Yeah.
which I think is awesome. You know, like I think that that's kind of one of the qualities of humans that we need to nurture more, because our society seems to have put sociopaths on a pedestal, and
Right.
we really don't need more sociopaths.
Exactly. We definitely don't. We
Yeah,
definitely don't.
yeah. So as a femdom, is there anything that you that you like would like to share as like something that's really important to you in a philosophical way?
What could I say about that? So, I never really thought about that.
Well, we can come back to that.
Okay.
What about as a financial dom, like this kind of like in your femdom that you do, like what is it about financial domination that fulfills you, other than the obvious, you know?
I know you get the money, but it's just knowing that you have that power to control a person's, you know, finances. You know, a lot of times you'll hear, you know, someone say, I control your wallet and stuff like that. Just to know you have that type of power, because, you know, in normal life, that's something that people don't give up, their finances. They're not going to allow you to be privy to that or even dictate what you give them, how you give it to them, and when you give it to them. So to know that I have that power, someone has given me that control, that is like, you know, a high as well.
Yeah. Does race and gender play into that for you?
A lot of times it does.
Mhm.
It does. because you get the, the subs that say they want to pay reparations and, they want to give back. And, I welcome that.
Yeah. So do you play off of that even more? Like I mean, I don't know if this is true in its form, but like is race play something that you do?
It depends on what that is. Again, that's something that I'm very, leery about, because I actually engaged in a race play once and I didn't like how it turned out. Like I ended up being disrespected and I had to put the sub in their place.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like a tug of war of the dominance of the role, the control, and I had to like shut that down.
Yeah.
So if it's not someone that I know or we've done sessions before, I normally don't like to, even engage in that. But yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely something that's like a very edgy topic right now.
Right.
And I think some people would, especially like with reparations being kind of like on the surface of many of our thoughts right now. Some of us would, or I would imagine some of us would play on that in some ways, but I think it's also very important and wise to seek the source of that kind of play,
Exactly.
because you said you felt disrespected, so the person was
Right.
probably like, it was probably more of a fetish than something sincere.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I got. And a lot of times subs know what they're doing. So they kind of draw you in without you knowing what's really going on. And this is why I have like such a lengthy job form, because I really want to know, where is this coming from?
Mhm.
I do not take on every and anyone as a sub. Absolutely not. And even if you tribute and you feel like, however you feel, I will give you back your money, because it's nothing to me, honestly. Like, I'm not going to take you on as a sub if I don't get what I want and if I don't feel comfortable. This is why I have a job form or application for subs to fill out,
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I've dealt with a lot.
Yeah.
So
Well,
try to weed it out and make it a little bit more comfortable for me and easygoing. I've just set up some new steps, but yeah.
it's so important, especially right now with the uprising of Black Lives Matter. And I want to ask you, how has that affected your career?
So honestly, it's affected my career for the better.
Okay.
Everything has been going a lot more, smoothly, I would say. Sales have shot through the roof, like it's tripled. So it's like everything is doing good. It's like finally we are being, you know, how could I say it, noticed,
Yeah.
And people are finally celebrating us, because we've always been here. We're always going to be here. And you always find we are celebrating other people, but we don't get the same acknowledgement. So
Right.
to know that finally we're being backed and we're being rooted for, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's really good. It's a really good feeling.
Good. I'm so glad to hear that. And I really hope that it maintains this way, because it's not like
Right.
a trend. It's really it's really about continuing this idea of inclusivity in all aspects of life, in business, in culture, in the arts,
Right.
in socializing, and
Exactly.
everything that we do. I have a lot of feelings about how Black Lives Matter movement has really brought a lot of people together, and it's like kind of like the biggest collective movement right now that
Yes.
a lot of people have ever seen, like a lot of people from the past, from the 60s and whatever else. And I really hope that it keeps moving as a movement. It's not just like
Right.
a thing that gets shot down.
Yeah, it's not like just a phase or what have you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think what's maybe different this time is that there isn't like a single voice. there isn't like a martyr or a person that could be martyred, you know? There isn't a Martin Luther King or
exactly.
so they can't take one person down and then it'll be done. It's
right.
And it's not just Black people. It's Asian people. It's brown people. It's, you know, the things that having to do with the First Nations people.
Yes.
All the immigrants coming and all the people that are detained by ICE. It's Muslims. You know, it's like a lot of people.
Yeah, so, everyone literally all over the world has stood for us finally, you know? And it has brought everyone together. And it's so crazy that something like that caused so much division. You understand what I'm saying? So it's like, just to see that, and like I said, we're being celebrated now, and it's like now people can actually see like what we're made of, you know? This is our time like to shine. And I, even with my business, I've gotten, you know, with my vanilla life business, which is in sex too, still under the same umbrella. My vanilla business, as well as, you know, being a professional dominatrix, both subs and my customers say, wow, the kind of service that I get from you, we can tell like you actually care and you like what you're doing. So they feel safe enough and comfortable enough to come back, either book a session or place another order. And they're like, wow, I didn't even know you were here all this time. So it's like, I just needed a shot, you know?
Yeah.
We just needed a shot. We'll take it from here. We're going to see how powerful we've been, like, because we've been that way, but we just need a shot. We just needed a shot. We'll take it from there.
Well, you've been powerful without recognition, but also under oppression. And it's like once that foot is lifted off of you, it's like, okay, now I don't have to, you know, press up against that foot anymore. I have
exactly. Now I can move freely. I can really don't have to walk on eggshells. You know, now people are going to see me for who I am. And I don't have to worry about, you know, the backlash or being blackballed or, you know, things of that nature. So, yeah.
Even terms like that are totally racist, like blackballed and blacklisted.
Right. You're right. Exactly.
Yeah, and it's caused like a whole worldwide re-examining of how we use our words, because there's definitely been like anti-Blackness in so many different ways, especially the ways that we use words like that. You know, it's like it's like when you use the word like black magic as a pejorative, like as a negative thing, then that puts into people's minds subconsciously that black is bad.
Exactly.
And we just gotta, you know, we have to kind of like eliminate those words too, I think.
Right. You're absolutely correct about that. You're absolutely correct.
Be careful what you speak.
Exactly. Words are very powerful. They are.
Yeah. Okay, so as far as like you being a professional dominatrix and having a sex shop, are you out about your profession? I mean, like, what is vanilla anymore anyway to you?
Exactly. That's why I always say like normal, like, yeah, okay. But yeah, I'm out and about. I put it all over, like, you know, I'm a pro dom, book me, you know, I'm all over it. This is who I am. This is what I do. And I'm not going to be, you know, ashamed of that. Like, why?
Yeah.
What's taboo for you may be normal for me. And then it just may be, you just need an introduction, you know?
Yeah.
A lot of people are introduced to different things at their life at different times.
Yeah.
This may be something that you might be into and you don't even know. So why, you know, shy away or kink shame or whatever you want to call it, you know?
Yeah. And it's also so much more important to get that kind of experience and introduction from a professional rather than just some like rando.
Exactly. Yes, it's so funny you said that, because I actually wanted to join in on someone's live and they were talking about poly relationships and monogamy and even arranged marriages, and someone that was not in the profession, just hearing like their thoughts, it was like, whoa, you can really scare people away or make people feel less than or ashamed of whatever situation that they're in. And I'm like, this is totally not cool. Like, wow.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's a lot of misinformation that can be really harmful.
Exactly.
So I'm curious, and these are, I guess, like these are kind of getting closer to the end of the interview here, so that if anybody wanted to ask questions, get your questions ready. Do you see this alternative sexuality of like kink and BDSM becoming more acceptable in the mainstream? Yeah.
I would honestly hope that it would become more acceptable, in mainstream and stuff like that. I feel like in everything there are stages. And, just like we have the LGBT community and now it's so accepted, I feel like, okay, hey, you got us over here too. But I feel like it takes us to do interviews and to, spread light on, what it is that's going on and to normalize it. That would pretty much start the acceptance of others, of what we do. So yeah, it starts with us, one step at a time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I totally agree. Like these interviews that we do, I feel like are so illuminating for people who are watching, because there are a lot of like normal human things that we do. We're not just like living 24 hours with all our people in cages and
yes,
wearing
right. Yes, because I'm definitely a pro dom. I am not a lifestyle dom. I don't live this 24/7.
Right. And you do normal things like cook food on the stove and
yes.
So I totally agree with you on that, and thank you for being here on our Periscope and sharing.
Thank you for having me. Yes, absolutely.
And so I have two more questions, and they're kind of like, it's a two-part question.
Okay.
What are your vices and virtues?
So I normally don't share that.
And that's okay if you don't want to.
Yeah, I really normally don't share that.
Okay. No problem. Okay, so I just switched over to this banner. If any of you guys are curious to find out more about Goddess Rue, she has a Twitter, and her business has a website as well as an Instagram.
Yeah.
And if you would like to make direct contact with Goddess Rue to book a session, or at least to fill out the long questionnaire that she requires, it is an email address, goddessrue@gmail.com. And so that's scrolling down here for anybody that needs to copy that down. And we will go ahead and open up the floor for questions if anybody has any questions. And let's see. Miss Tallulah. Let's see. Miss Tallulah says, out in your community, do you feel comfortable seeing people in your community, like friends and acquaintances?
Yes, I absolutely do. And that's why I said, to go back to our question, like, how do you feel? Or do you feel like your profession or being in the kink community, is it going to translate to it being accepted, sooner? But this is why I'm so open with it, because I want people to realize that this too is normal. These are feelings that we have, and these are why people book sessions. They have kinks that they need fulfilled. These are feelings, valid feelings, and it's okay. It's nothing wrong with that. So yeah, it's totally fine. I openly let people know, friends, family, loved ones, everyone knows what I do. And honestly, it opens up the floor for them to ask more questions, and they now feel comfortable if they hear about it. Like, oh, my friend is a professional dominatrix. Wow, tell me more. it's not so intimidating anymore. It's not something that's, you know, you got to hush hush about it. You know, now other people want to engage in that type of conversation and to know more. Like, wow, there's more than one person in this. Okay, what do you do? It's a great, you know, conversation starter. So I stand in what I do. I love it, and I let everyone know.
Do you ever fear any backlash from people? Like, you're so independent because you have your own business, you know,
Yeah.
your own practice. You don't
Yes.
rely on anybody else.
Nope.
And so even if you did fear backlash, it wouldn't jeopardize your business, you know, like your income.
Right. Exactly.
But do you ever feel like there are people that you don't want to, you know, you don't want to take these questions from?
So okay. I'm coming from a place where I used to work with children. I used to work in the Board of Education. So I definitely get, you know, in being a professional dominatrix and owning a, you know, sex toy store online, you kind of tiptoe around certain things because you don't want any backlash and you really don't want to deal with that from your coworkers and your fellow employees and stuff like that. And that's another reason why I decided to like leave that alone and dive headfirst into my business, because I didn't want to deal with that, you know. I want to be able to live in my truth.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I let that go.
Yeah, that's so well brave, you know, and I have to say that there are definitely certain social spaces that I navigate with, especially with my mom, you know, like my Asian mom. We go on a lot of like old people tours.
Okay.
And she knows what I do, you know, like
Yes.
she's totally cool with it, but I don't know that I want to open up the conversation with all these old people. You know,
Right.
like being, you know, on a tour with them, like having to have dinner with them for 12 days straight. Like, I don't want to be the one person that is like, oh, she's the thing, you know, and how.
And I'm literally the total opposite. I love it. I love to see people clutch their pearls and to see like that, like the shocked faces. And those are the ones that's normally so interested. They'll email me later or figure out how they can contact me. And I'm like, look at this. If people only knew, I love it. I love it. I love it. Like,
I love
you know, my mom,
it too.
I'm sorry, my mom, we're West Indian. So that's something that's like not talked about, you know, but I'm like, this is what I do. This is what it is. Like, and she's like, wear a mask. I'm like, nope, I'm not wearing a mask. She's like, oh, you know, you got to be careful. This is what I do.
Yeah.
Take me as I am, or just keep it pushing. Like, this is it. This is what you're going to get.
It's so big that it seems like it gives you immunity. I love that. I guess like for me, you know, my culture is also similar in some ways. Like we just don't talk about that. And
Right.
and I'm not trying to make my mom uncomfortable also, where people are swarming around us asking questions about dildos, you know, like my mom's very, you know, introverted and quiet and
Okay.
wants to like have a good time with her daughter and not be like, fighting off people, fighting off perverts, you know?
Right. I get that. And it's come from a place of love and respect as well.
Yeah.
Because I know if I'm going to engage in something like that, I never want to make my mom uncomfortable. I would, you know, have a conversation with her like, listen, this could be a potential sale. So I'm going to need you to like, you know,
And
let me do what I do. And we'll just pick this up where you paused it. But normally, yeah, that's the thing. You have to communicate. Communication is a big key. And if she tells me like, you know, I absolutely don't want to be a part of this or even around, or if, like you said, we're going to be around these people for a few days, then, you know, I would hold off. I would respect her wishes, you know? So definitely. Or communication always.
That's a really good point. And if there was definitely like some potential client person, you know, or something like that in that space of like vacation land, I would probably, you know, have a conversation with your mom and be like,
yeah,
I might be able to make a few grand on this boat here. Are you okay with that?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
And like, come on. When you hear that, it's like, are you gonna give it to me?
Yeah.
Or should I just do what I do? You know? But
yeah.
Normally my mom, she has now come to be really understanding, and she knows when to be present and when to make her exit. So we kind of got that, down pat. So I'm glad that we're finally at that point, Definitely.
That's such a great relationship too, that you guys have that open communication and she supports you by just kind of like this, time for me to go.
Yep. She's like, okay. And you want to know what's so funny? Like, it's like you don't know what you're gonna get and when you're gonna get dealing with my mom. Sometimes she's like, no, I don't feel like it. Next time she's like, oh, you know what my daughter does? I'm like, what? Like, that's a curveball. Like, okay, I'll take it, So
yeah. I love that. You're just so comfortable with it everywhere you go that
yes.
there's no censoring, there's no like tiptoeing, and that is living so authentically and so bravely. I hope that other people can take that cue to, not be ashamed of anything.
Right.
Stigma is something that other people put on us. It's not something that we have to carry around.
Right. Exactly.
Right. Yeah. So yes, normalize and destigmatize everything that we do. Thank you.
Exactly.
Does anybody have any more questions? Pout Poetry by Aaliyah says, I'm imagining her mom being like, okay, but you're paying for lunch.
Oh, yes. Oh, my gosh. Yes. Yes. They hit it right on the nail. That is, let me tell you, she uses that all the time, all the time, all the time. Okay. All the time. Like, she is a stickler with that. She loves to stick me with the bills, but she's taken care of me practically my whole life. So, I'm going to do it. It's just she has to put it in there. She has to verbalize it. And I'm like, all right.
She's like doing a little power play there.
Yeah.
Power play.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so if there aren't any more questions in this moment, maybe Goddess Rue, can you tell us about some of your upcoming projects or anything that you have working on?
Yes. So I'm actually in the process of starting or, putting together a sex ed and kink shop. So pretty much you get a little bit of everything. It's going to be a tour. So I'm going to be hitting the different states. Of course, I'm starting here in New York. And then we're going to be traveling to Atlanta. We're going to go to the South and stuff like that. That'll be up later on my social media page, as well as both social media, Twitter and Instagram.
Okay.
And so pretty much what that is, it'll just be an introduction of toys, vanilla toys. And then an introduction to like the BDSM toys. So we're gonna get a little bit more feisty,
Oh, yeah.
And we're gonna have some education behind that. So just teaching people like what tools are for what, and then open up the floor for them to be able to shop and let's have a good time. Let's party.
Yes. Oh my God, that's such a wonderful idea. I love it. I love it. Yes.
We actually had one date booked for New York, and we had to get our money back because that's when COVID hit. We were actually supposed to be on tour already, and then even now we're kind of tiptoeing on the amount of people you can have in one space. Like in New York, it's like 50 people, but I have way over 50 people that wants to attend, and they've been waiting for a while. So I'm like, you know what? I'll hold off a little longer until we can have a little bit more people and make it right, do it right.
Yeah.
So
that's so awesome. I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's such a great idea. I hope you wear that sexy body.
Oh, yes. I always have something sexy. And this is actually from my website. I always have to bring it back.
Okay. Promote the things you sell.
Yes.
Okay, so you said that both your Instagram and Twitter will have information on that. Is there
Yes.
is there like an email list that will notify people when it's like.
Absolutely. So if you go on www.pleasurableseductions.com and you scroll down to the bottom, you can actually fill out that email form and automatically you'll be added to the email list. And pretty much in the subject line or even in the meat of the email, you can put what you're interested in. And then we will, you know, put you where you need to be as far as if you're interested in toys or events.
Okay.
And you would get emails pretty much in regards to that. So yes.
So that's www.pleasurableseductions.com.
Yes.
I'm going to put that in the chat and let everybody copy that down, and you will be notified when she will put you where you're supposed to go and let you know when it's time.
Exactly. I'll point you in the right direction.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that because I think, you know, it's a lot of times it's like one or the other when people are learning about sex toys or kink toys, it's like either this one or that one, and
Right.
together is such a wonderful idea.
Yes.
That way they feel like it's all the same thing, you know.
Exactly.
It's part of your sexuality. It's not.
Yes. It shouldn't be separated. Exactly.
You don't have to go to the bathroom for this stuff.
Right. Exactly. 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 I'm like, come on now. This is normal. Like, let's get into this, you know?
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So I'm not seeing any more questions.
Okay.
So we can go ahead and wrap this up. If there's anything else that you would like to, you know, share about yourself or just kind of give the audience a couple of your 2 cents, you're welcome to do that. Otherwise, did you want to say anything else to her?
Well, of course, I'll always have something to say. Well, you know, I just like to thank you guys for taking the time out to just, you know, hear what I have to say. Like I said, you know, Dia having this platform and allowing me to speak openly and freely is another step in, you know, ending the shame around all sex work, with mine in particular being a pro dominatrix. So I appreciate you for that. And, you know, you guys have my handles. Feel free to contact me, reach out, email me. I'm very accessible. I do not, well, I shouldn't say I do not answer all emails and, you know, messages. However, I kind of weed them out. I kind of, you know, put them in a list of, I prioritize them, guys. Sorry. Because I have my clients, I have my customers. So, you know, I try to give priority where it's due. But yes, other than that, I'm very accessible. You know, I'm a normal human being, you know. It's just I like a little extra stuff, you know.
She's a normal human being with some. Thank you so much, guys. If you don't mind just like hanging out for another 5 minutes, I'm gonna end this broadcast and then just kind of give you another brief rundown of what happens after. And for all the audience people that are still here, we want to thank you guys for always tuning in and being so polite and so supportive. This is our Patreon. If you want to show us a little love or get some monthly treats from us, depending on which tier you're able to subscribe to. There's several of them. And that's patreon.com/Maison de Rouge. And it's scrolling down there for you. Please reach out to Goddess Rue because this kinky sex toy tour sounds amazing, and like who doesn't need more of that in their life anyways. I'm sure there's tons of tools and toys that you haven't ever thought about in ways that you haven't thought about using them, so let her show them to you.
Absolutely.
And we will be back next week with another wonderful set of guests. Thanks again for tuning in and have a wonderful week, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.